Welcome back to my channel Travel Facts and Hacks. Good evening and thank you for being here. You need to hear this if you're an American traveler. Tonight we're diving into a topic that might surprise some of you. A look at the countries around the world where Americans might find themselves on the unwelcome list. Over the next few minutes, we're going to unpack why that is. From political tensions and cultural differences to historical grievances and recent events, there are many reasons why Americans might not be welcome in certain places. As popular as Americans are globally, we're going to look at 10 countries where Americans are specifically not welcome. And their reasons. Do not miss out on number 3. It is the most important. And please subscribe to help us in continuing to make this content. Number 10. Our journey into this unsettling reality begins with a country that has, for decades, existed in a state of self-imposed isolation, North Korea. Ruled by a regime known for its secrecy and iron grip on its people, North Korea is a place where the very act of stepping across the border as an American citizen is fraught with peril. The reasons for this animosity are deeply rooted in the history between our two nations. The Korean War, though officially ending in an armistice in 1953, never truly reached a peaceful resolution. That unresolved conflict, coupled with North Korea's distrust of the West and its nuclear ambitions, have created a chasm between our two cultures, making it nearly impossible for Americans to be welcomed or even tolerated within its borders. And number 9. Our next stop takes us to the Middle East, to a nation grappling with its own complex relationship with the United States, Iran. Once a close ally of the U.S., the 1979 Islamic Revolution dramatically shifted the dynamics between our two countries. The hostage crisis that followed, where 52 Americans were held captive for 444 days, left an indelible scar on the American psyche. Today, that historical baggage, combined with Iran's nuclear ambitions and support for groups deemed hostile by the U.S., has resulted in a deep freeze in diplomatic relations. For Americans, traveling to Iran is not simply inadvisable, it's often impossible, with visas rarely granted and a pervasive sense of suspicion directed at anyone perceived as a representative of the United States. Number 8. Our journey concludes in a country that has become a symbol of geopolitical tensions and historical conflicts with the U.S., Russia. The Cold War era and subsequent political clashes have left a significant impact on both nations. The ideological battle, marked by espionage, proxy wars, and nuclear arms race, resulted in a deep-seated mistrust and numerous casualties on both sides. While the Cold War officially ended in 1991, the legacy of that era continues to influence U.S.-Russia relations, fueling anti-American sentiment and making it a challenging destination for U.S. citizens. Number 7. Our journey now takes us to South America, to a country grappling with political turmoil and economic collapse, Venezuela. Once a prosperous nation, Venezuela has been in a state of crisis for years, with hyperinflation, food shortages, and political instability plaguing its people. The United States, long critical of the Venezuelan government and its socialist policies, has imposed sanctions and provided support to opposition groups, further inflaming tensions. This interference, as perceived by the Venezuelan government, has made Americans targets, unwelcome visitors in a country where anti-American sentiment runs high. Number 6. We return to the Middle East now, to a nation embroiled in a devastating proxy war, Yemen. For years, Yemen has been torn apart by a conflict that has its roots in a complex web of regional power struggles and internal divisions. The United States, through its support of Saudi Arabia's intervention in the conflict, has been drawn into this quagmire, a move that has fueled anti-American sentiment among certain factions within Yemen. This resentment, coupled with the very real dangers posed by the ongoing conflict, makes Yemen an incredibly dangerous and unwelcoming destination for Americans. Number 5. Our next destination takes us to North Africa, to a country still reeling from the aftermath of revolution and the collapse of a dictatorship, Libya. Since the fall of Muammar Gaddafi in 2011, Libya has struggled to establish a stable government, with various factions vying for control. The United States, through its involvement in the NATO-led intervention in 2011, has played a role in shaping Libya's post-Gaddafi landscape, a role that has been met with mixed reactions. This intervention, coupled with the general instability and security concerns that plague Libya, makes it a highly inadvisable destination for Americans. Number 4. Our journey continues in East Africa, to a nation synonymous with lawlessness and instability, Somalia. For decades, Somalia has been ravaged by civil war, terrorism, and famine, its fragile government struggling to exert control over its territory. The United States, through its counterterrorism efforts and support of the Somali government, has become entangled in this complex conflict. This involvement, coupled with the very real threat posed by al-Shabaab, a terrorist group with ties to al-Qaeda, makes Somalia one of the most dangerous and unwelcoming countries for Americans. Number 3. We return now to a country that has become deeply familiar to Americans, though perhaps not in the way one might hope, Afghanistan. For 2 decades, the United States waged war in Afghanistan, a war that exacted a heavy toll on both nations. The withdrawal of U.S. forces in 2021 and the subsequent takeover by the Taliban have created a new chapter of uncertainty and instability. This change in power, coupled with the Taliban's history of hostility towards the United States, makes Afghanistan an incredibly dangerous and unwelcoming place for Americans. Number 2, our penultimate stop takes us back to Africa, to a nation grappling with a long history of conflict and political instability, Sudan. For years, Sudan was ruled by Omar al-Bashir, a dictator indicted by the International Criminal Court for war crimes and genocide. The United States, through its sanctions and condemnation of Bashir's regime, played a role in isolating Sudan on the world stage. While Bashir was ousted in 2019, Sudan's transition to democracy has been fraught with challenges, and the United States remains a target of suspicion and resentment for many. Number 1. From Iran, we shift our focus to a nation mired in a brutal civil war, Syria. For over a decade, Syria has been ravaged by conflict, a conflict that has claimed the lives of hundreds of thousands of people and displaced millions more. The U.S., through its involvement in the fight against ISIS and its support of certain rebel groups, has become embroiled in this complex conflict. This involvement, coupled with long-standing anti-American sentiment fueled by the Syrian government, has made Syria an incredibly dangerous and unwelcoming place for Americans. As we've seen, the reasons why these 10 countries might not welcome Americans with open arms are complex and varied. From political conflicts and historical baggage to ongoing wars and deep-seated resentments, the reasons are as diverse as the nations themselves. This isn't about judgment, but about awareness. It's a stark reminder that the world is a complicated place, and our actions as a nation have consequences. Thank you for being with us. If you found this video insightful, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment below.